Pope Francis welcoming African refugees to his weekly audience in the Vatican last Wednesday. The following day in Dublin, one of his top aides, the leader of the German Bishops' Conference, explained why in February he had called for a reduction in the number of refugees entering Germany.
We had welcomed in the last year more than 1 million people, and it's clear that no country can solve the problem of the world in one country. That is not possible. So we need the solidarity of the world and Europe, and our Chancellor is working on it. It's not easy, and I have not to judge about others, but I think it was for us as church and also as country a very extraordinary experience that so many people, till today in our parishes, are open to help.
Cardinal Marx was here to address an international conference organised by Trinity College Dublin's Loyola Institute. His presentation was on the Church and the challenge of freedom.
And so it's very important, I think, also that the Church will have a positive view of the modern world. Not everything is positive. That's clear. In the modern societies we have negative things. But the great history of freedom is not a history to a much more negative society, but it's a positive way. And it's inspired from the Christian faith. The freedom of every person, the dignity, the equal rights of man and woman. We were not always on the right side. But the Bible and the Christian faith was on the right side. Not always the church, not always the church leaders, not always the faithful. But in the future we want to be there. That must be very clear. A positive view of the development of freedom and to look for a society which is based on values and based on responsible freedom, not freedom to do everything you want. I think that is clear. We have a concept of freedom based on the social doctrine of the Church, of the Christian anthropology, and the freedom is complete in love. But love is not the beginning. The beginning is freedom. Without freedom you cannot love. That's not possible. So the beginning is freedom. So second, it must be for the role of the Church, it must be very important formation of people to live in complex situations, not simplifying the world in our education, in our sermons. I think that is one of the most important things for the future. We cannot, in the future, we will not have less complex situations, perhaps more for the people. And our answer has to be to build in our schools, or also in the formation of this, and we see is now in the discussion, the level of the discussions, the formation to live in complex situations without forgetting your own sources, your own principles. A modern society, an open society, must not be a society without principles. But the principles cannot be forced from an institution. That must be in a testimony given to all. And so the Church will be much more important for the future. The religion will be important, but not the religion which is concentrating on their own, like the Pope says in the Nazism, and looking like a castle on the development of the people, and we are in the castle and looking what the world is doing.
After the Pope, Cardinal Marx is Europe's leading Catholic diocesan bishop. He's a member of the elite council of 8 cardinals established by the Pope to reform the Church's central administration. Another conference speaker says the Cardinals' views on the Church in a pluralist society reflect those of Pope Francis and differ radically from those of the retired Pope Benedict.
What Cardinal Marx said, that the Church cannot be a castle looking out at the world, what's happening, without being influenced. It sounds like a caricature, but for many Catholics in the US and other places, that's exactly their vision of the Church. So, for example, in the US, in these last couple of years, there is a very interesting debate on what Catholics should do, and there's this idea of the Benedict option, so that we should retreat, build some small communities, because the world is beyond repair. That's not a Catholic view of things, but so here Cardinal Marx offered a very different view, a view of engagement of the Church in the modern world. That comes from the Second Vatican Council, 50 years ago.
The conference was the largest interdisciplinary initiative of its kind to have been staged here and featured almost 50 speakers from abroad and a dozen from Ireland. Joe Little, RTE News, Dublin.